there, my name is Megan and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a spoiler-free review for Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. Before we get on into the review, if you are not already subscribed to my channel, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button as well as the little bell icon so you can be notified every time I post new content. I post new videos every Sunday and every Wednesday. So in this review, I'm going to be talking about the world, the characters, things that I liked and things that I didn't like, and then give it an overall rating. Warbreaker is a standalone fantasy that takes place in the Brandon Sanderson Cosmere. I feel like this is definitely a book that isn't talked about as much as his other works like Mistborn and the Stormlight Archives, and I think a lot of people hesitate when it comes to standalone fantasy because it is hard to develop a world and a good plot within one book, in my opinion, in a complex fantasy world, but Warbreaker actually did a really good job at this. In this world, we follow two different kingdoms, Idris and Hallandren, and both of these kingdoms share a common ancestry, they share a common history, and at one time, Idris broke away to become an independent nation. As the years went on, both of these kingdoms kind of developed their own identities. Idris is located in the mountains. They control a lot of the trade passes through the mountains. It is ruled by a king, and it's very modest. It's got a much smaller population. They don't really like excessive, ostentatious things. They don't like a lot of color. Hallandren, on the other hand, is very colorful. It's considered a little bit more, I guess, morally loose than Idris. This book does focus a lot on these fantastical religions, and one of the big differences between these two kingdoms is the religions. In Idris, they have a monotheistic religion, and they only worship one god. In Hallandren, they worship multiple gods, and these gods are living flesh beings, and they dwell among the people, and they are known as returned. They were once humans who died courageous, victorious deaths, and then were kind of reincarnated or returned and brought back to life as gods, and this is what the people of Hallandren worship. Each god in Hallandren is served by a group of priests and servants, and they are bigger than normal people. They are more attractive than normal people, and physically they are quite flawless. And they also hold more magic power than a regular person, which I will get into in just a second with regards to the magic system of this world. One thing that is interesting about the Returned is that they are not immortal. They can choose to give up their life for someone, and they do not remember anything about their previous life. Now I'm going to go on to the magic system because this book really revolves around this magic system. The entire plot revolves around this magic system, and it is very unique. So the whole magic system circulates around what's known as breath, and breath is basically the life essence of every single person, and every person is born with at least one innate breath. People are able to acquire more breath, but they cannot steal breath, and they can also give breath away. And if they choose to do that, they become what's known as a drab. Breath enables people to have more keener senses. They can see color more vibrantly, and if you become a drab, then you lose those abilities. The more breaths the person has, the more powerful they are, and they are also seen as someone that's higher in the social hierarchy of the Hallandren society. One of the very cool and unique things about breath is that it can be used to animate and awaken inanimate physical objects, and people that can do this are known as awakeners, and they're able to expand their breath in order to awaken objects and then take that breath back so they're not technically losing anything. And they can awaken anything from straw to cloth to weapons to statues. Now, the Returned, the gods that the people of Hallandren worship, live on one breath a week, and these breaths are volunteered or donated by different people of the Hallandren city, and they give up their breath to these gods as a sacrifice. Warbreaker follows three main characters. We have two sisters, Vivenna and Ciri, and they are from Idris, and then we have a god known as Lightsong. So I'm going to talk about Ciri and Vivenna first before talking about Lightsong. At the beginning of Warbreaker, we learned that years and years ago, a treaty was struck between the king of Idris and the priests of Hallandren that the king of Idris would give up his firstborn daughter to marry the God King. The God King is the most powerful Returned in Hallandren. He is revered, he is worshipped, he has the most breaths of any god, and he is known to be very ruthless, a killer, cruel, and no one can even look upon him or talk to him without fear of being killed. Vivenna is the oldest daughter of the king of Idris, and she is the one that is going to be married to the God King. She has spent her whole life preparing for this, learning how to be a queen, learning how to interact with the God King so as not to offend him. But when the time comes for the king to send his daughter away, he ends up not being able to part with Vivenna because he loves her so much and sends his youngest daughter, Ciri, in her stead. And Ciri is the youngest, like I said, daughter. She knows that she's really not ever going to have a place in the kingdom. She never listened to her tutor. She's a bit rambunctious and free-minded, and Vivenna and Ciri do not expect this to happen at all. After Ciri is thrust into this role of becoming the God King's wife, Vivenna realizes that she has to go to Hallandren to save her sister from being married to this God King and bearing him a son. The next main character whose point of view we follow is Lightsong, and Lightsong is a returned. He is a god in Hallandren, and he is known as the god of bravery. Lightsong is very snarky and very flippant. He definitely doesn't take his role as a god seriously. He's constantly cracking jokes and trying to get the other gods to underestimate him. And the ironic thing about Lightsong is that he is constantly second-guessing his own divinity, which is what the entire religion of Hallandren is based off of. After a murder happens at one of the other gods' palaces, Lightsong kind of takes it upon himself to start investigating the court, the role of the priests, the role of the servants, and what exactly is going on. Now I'm going to talk about the things that I liked. I really enjoyed the character development with Ciri and Vivenna. Both of these girls kind of started out one way in the story and then were different by the end. So Vivenna started off as a very by-the-book kind of girl, always did what she was told, very modest, would never color outside the lines, so to speak, and she takes on the responsibility of saving her sister, something that she never thought that she would do. She ends up getting involved with these mercenaries who are violent and untrustworthy, and she begins to learn that things are not always as they seem and that she might not be able to trust everybody that she thinks she can trust. And we learn that Vivenna is actually extremely naive and has to learn lessons the hard way by messing up and getting in trouble and really getting herself into a pickle a lot of the times. And that is really the only way that she learns and loses her innocence. Then we have Ciri, who comes into this book not really caring about anything, and as time goes on, learns to take on her responsibilities as queen, learns to care about this kingdom and the people involved, especially the gods. She begins to take on more responsibilities, and both of these women, what I really liked is that they both learned that they cannot believe everything that people tell them, that they cannot take everything at face value, and if they really want to learn the truth, then they need to seek out resources and educate themselves. Another thing that I liked was the magic system. Like I said earlier, I've never read anything like it. We have breath that can awaken objects. I always found that magic system to be very interesting and very fun to read about. It's a very complex magic system, but not in a way that makes the story unreadable, and it definitely allows for a very interesting and intricate plot. The next thing I liked were the twists that Brandon Sanderson inserted into this plot. There were two main twists that really caught me by surprise, and they both occurred towards the end of the book. One of them had to do with who actually betrayed Ciri and the people of Hallandren, and then we kind of learned the backstory of another character that we're introduced to kind of in the middle of the book and his role and everything. So I felt that those two plot twists were very well done and really kind of brought the whole story together. Now I'm going to talk about what I didn't like, and there really wasn't that much that I didn't like about Warbreaker. The first thing is that I found in the middle of the book was a bit slow and dragging. The part where Vivenna had been betrayed by people that she thought she could trust, and she kind of goes through this moment of hardship, and I just found that while that was a learning experience for Vivenna, I'm not really sure that it was necessary for the whole book, and I just found it a bit slow and boring, but it was not a huge chunk of the book, so it was definitely easy to get through. And next, for a Brandon Sanderson book, this was decidedly lacking in action. It was definitely a book that follows more court intrigue and people trying to figure out exactly what's going on, who they can trust, who they can't. There was not really a lot of battle scenes or fighting until the very end, and there was an implied fighting scene at the end that if there had been a sequel to the series, we probably would have seen. But if you're expecting like large battle scenes, like in Way of Kings with regards to this book, they're not in there. It was definitely a very plot-driven book with regards to court politics and court intrigue rather than battles. Okay, you guys, so that is it for my spoiler-free review of Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. I really liked this book. I thought it was easy to read. I really enjoyed the relationship between Ciri and Vivenna and how they grew as characters over the course of the book. Lightsong was hilarious. I really enjoyed his personality, and I really enjoyed the 2 twists inserted at the end of the book. All in all, I gave Warbreaker 5 out of 5 stars, and I would definitely recommend it if you're looking for a standalone fantasy or a good fantasy read in general. Let me know in the comments if you have read Warbreaker and what you thought of it, and I will see you guys soon in another video. Goodbye!